Hi class, my name is Audrey Baenziger, and this is my project proposal presentation. So to start, I would like to go over myself as an advocate. I had this image created of me being an educational literacy advocate, and I feel like it just is really bright and colorful and I love it. My area of advocacy that I'm focusing on is equity and access to reading materials. I do believe that every student should have access to reading materials regardless of class, ability, skin color, or family income. My strengths as an advocate are that I'm a good listener, I'm passionate, and I'm a good communicator. My weaknesses are fact finder. I definitely lead with what I hear and see rather than researching things. I need to work on that. And then individualist. I definitely lead as a group. I need to lead more with myself. And then reasonable, I definitely get a little excited and I can't narrow down my time and my research very well, so I need to be a little more reasonable with that. And then my value, I value equity and access for all students and that everyone should have the right to read. So the issue I would like to go over is equity and access for books. Many communities cannot help donate books for schools or to students directly, or give them affordable books if donation isn't, a possibility. And I do have the privilege that my community does and want to donate these books to schools, as well as have a resource that provides students with affordable reading materials. And I would love to advocate how my own community has been able to advocate for their readers with the recycle bookstore that I have chosen to research, and how I can help them during my time in this class. So my two areas of advocacy that I went over in my paper are the right to read and equity and access in education. To kind of briefly go over the right to read, many schools do not have access to replace books or get new books. There were two lawsuits going on in Detroit. There was a Detroit literacy lawsuit that was recently settled, but the opinion of the judge was that the right to read is implicitly guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, whereas another group involved was a group of students, and their teachers sued the state of California for doing a poor job of teaching students how to read and won a $53 million settlement. So that the state's lowest performing schools could have the resources to do better. And then for equity and access, there's communities that have taken charge in equity and access for education, such as the school bus program in Illinois. A quote regarding that was, "Every child has the right to be supported by their parents and community to grow, learn, and develop in the early years, and upon reaching school age to go to school and be welcomed and included by teachers and peers alike. When all children, regardless of their differences, are educated together, everyone benefits, and this is the cornerstone of inclusive education." I thought that was a great quote. So research finding, kind of as I went over, there's the lawsuits for the right to read. I found that very informative on what is going on. And then, of course, the school bus program, to kind of go over the school bus program more, in 2019 to support students in districts where more than 50% of the student population comes from low-income households, and nearly 500 students are homeless. This year, 125 volunteers from over 30 companies packed and distributed over 3,000 backpacks filled with essential school supplies. The effort also included 300 teacher kits and over 3,000 custom bookmarks, ensuring students have what they need to thrive academically. Again, I just think that is such a good finding when going over equity and access for educational materials and reading materials specifically. And then I also found more information on how it helps students' cognitive abilities. Again, I just think it's very important to have reading materials as a resource for children's learning. And then, of course, it helps strengthen children's vocabulary as they're learning new words for the younger students. So once again, my chosen focus area is equity and access for reading materials. I decided to combine my area of interest because they're both similar, so I made it kind of like a combination because I believe that the right to read can be within the issue of equity and access for education. And then students' desire to access books to further their cognitive abilities and vocabulary that's just also, again, very important because they're strengthening their skills to read, especially when they're in elementary school. And then my advocacy plan is addressing what my community has done for students and young learners and helping expand what my chosen organization has already done for their community in terms of access of reading materials. And then how I'll be an advocate. I want to partner with the local recycle bookstore to help them in their mission. I want to help educate others in my community on the issue of access to reading materials and advocate for young readers and their access to books, as well as support organizations that advocate for young readers. So advocacy and organizations in my local community, of course, there's the local schools and districts. I have a picture of them right here. This is the local high school. And then my local library is right here. Their quote from their website was, "We are happy to offer a wide variety of programs, classes, and resources for our youth and families. Please note that you do not need to have a library card to attend any of our programs. However, some of our online resources do require a library card." So they do open up a lot to the public and youth. And then the Recycle Bookstore, which is the organization that I did choose, is right here. Their quote was, "The Friends of the Las Gatos Library is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization established to encourage use of the library for the pursuit of knowledge, information, and pleasure, to increase public awareness of library resources, and to raise funds for library enhances." Their whole goal is to help raise money for the library, but I do believe that their organization does really help target young readers and giving them access to very cheap and affordable books. And how does this affect education? So advocating for young readers to have access to strengthening their cognitive abilities, reading skills, or school educated, related assignments is crucial for their education. Not having access to books can affect their education and their future of education in communities. And then this is my works cited. Thank you very much for listening.